navigating through change. We have a great panel here for you all. We'll do a quick round of introductions. Do you mind introducing yourself? Tell us what you do.
Hey, so good evening, everyone. My name is Breyuna Irby. Thank you so much for having me. So a bit of my background, I am co-founder of the Queen's Chalice, which is a bar management company. So we handle the logistics of bar planning, but also to self-taught project managers. So this year I was very blessed to be able to be the project manager of 3 startup companies, one being Render ATL.
Very good at it.
I appreciate it.
Can confirm.
But listen, it's all by God's grace, so I have to throw that out there. So that's a little bit about me, so I'm really excited to get into our discussion today.
So my name is Taylor. I live in Nashville. I've been in the recruiting engineering space for 13 years now. I've probably placed over 1,000 people in jobs. I've seen thousands of companies fail and succeed when it comes to hiring. I've seen the pitfalls of candidates in an interview and where they fall short. And so blessed to be here. Love Warren to death. Warren has been a guest on my pod a few times. Obviously, we're Breyuna. We have not worked together yet, but I can unpack my childhood trauma. I'm very glad to be here. I'm glad y'all are here too. I think it's gonna be a great conversation.
I'm Regina Rosario. I am a clinical mental health therapist, and I own a practice in the area called Mindfully Rooted Counseling and Consulting. And so I've been a therapist for about almost 4 years, but I had 14 years of social work experience. I was social work before I switched over to the clinical side. Okay. So I'm here to help with the stress and the mental health part of.
If we start sidebarring, Taylor keep talking.
No, this is, I think it's unique. You guys may know this. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so what is unique about this panel is we are going to talk about how you navigate through change, but also have one of our esteemed colleagues, Regina, chime in on really how we think about this from the lens of a psychologist. One of my theories, and I think this is really true about the mental health space, a lot of us don't get to experience the language, the techniques, any of this. And we're also always asked to take care of ourselves. But how do you do something you have no appreciation for and experience with? And so what I do think would be great, Regina, if you wouldn't mind, maybe a grounding exercise, a breathing exercise to get started?
Yeah. So I'm going to do something called box breathing, like a breathing exercise. Familiar with it?
No.
Okay. Well, and it sounds so, I think when we talk about breathing, it sounds so simple and it can get frustrating, like just breathe. But it's if we're not getting oxygen in, we can't regulate our, physical body, let alone our emotions. So box breathing, I'm just going to count for you. We're going to take a deep breath in on a 1, 2, 3, 4 count. We're going to hold that for a 4 count. We're going to release for a 4 count. And then we're going to hold again. And we're going to, what I'm saying makes sense?
Yeah.
Like, just follow along. All right. And if you want to, you can hold your hand on your stomach so you can feel your stomach go in and come back out. Like when you release to come back out, you don't have to. And if you want to, you can close your eyes and kind of just try to center into your body. Okay. All right. We're going to take a breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Are y'all able to do that?
I messed up. Could you do it again?
Okay. A few times, let's make sure y'all got it.
I was already can't hold my breath.
So when I start counting 1, we're gonna take a breath in. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Feel grounded? Come more into your body?
No, it's what I think is so fascinating about this, and maybe a little bit of my own therapeutic journey is, for the longest time, there's no way I'm going to do therapy. It's just, I think if you come from certain households, it's like, you're depressed. It's like, mama, she always say, I'll give you something to be depressed about, right? And you're just like, okay.
I'm still gonna want to go to therapy. She's like, you're okay. I go, no, I'm not.
But the somatic, the body,
Yes.
trying to feel more in our person. When kids say, go touch grass, there's actually something to that, right?
Mhm.
Where you're more connected to yourself and space. And so, maybe you could, Regina, tell us a little bit about, we talked about stress, talked about anxiety.
Mhm.
Why should we be more cognizant of it? What should we be looking for in our bodies, maybe, that can tell us we're maybe feeling stressed, feeling anxious?
Yeah, so stress is a normal feeling. We're all going to feel a level of stress, and stress is actually in some ways positive. It helps motivate us, it helps us know when, we need to study for an exam, like things like that. But when things reach anxiety levels or chronic stress is when we can, it's distracting us from what we need to do day to day. It's keeping us wanting to isolate. We're hyper fixated on the thoughts, and so we're not able to act. That's when we kind of notice that we need to pay more attention to this. It's not just stress, but this is leading to either chronic stress or anxiety. And we tend to, as in our society, to disconnect our mental from our physical, from our emotions, and act like they're three separate things. And so a lot of times what I'm doing in therapy is getting people to understand, like, where do you feel that in your body? What's going on within your body? And so that's because that's our first warning signs of what's going on. It may be my stomach starting to hurt, I have a headache, I have tension in my neck, my back hurts. It's signs of stress. We carry stress in our body. So being able to pay attention to that and doing things like breathing, stretching, physical exercise, releasing those stresses and anxieties can help support us. But if we're finding that's not quite enough, we may need to get more help, talk to someone, to work with a specialist like me, to work through those things. Because a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of us weren't raised with what to do with our emotions, let alone how to care for them. So it's not just saying, like you said, take care of yourself. What does that mean? And how do I ground myself in my body?
Gosh, and so I guess, Taylor, moving to you, when you think about the job seeker, you touched on just how hard that process is. People sort of struggle to find their ways in. Why do you think it's important that you are in check with your emotions when you're going up for an interview or you're about to, after a long day, think about, I need to go hammer some resumes. I need to go put these things out. Why do you think that's important?
It's funny. The first thing I tell people to do when they get laid off is to breathe. Like literally, this is so trauma processes in the body. So I've been deep in counseling lately. So I'm super excited. I sit next to her. I just feel good vibes going on. But we carry trauma in very different ways, and a lot of things that we think aren't trauma is trauma. And I feel like the word trauma is heavy, and it is. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, there could be varying degrees of it.
Absolutely.
And so it's like when we hear trauma, like I got in a car accident, and that is. But even somebody that says something to you about your appearance that you carry for the next 10 years of your life is trauma as well, right? And so when it comes to laying off, like when you're laid off, that is trauma, right? I was laid off for the first time in my entire career last year. And so like when I went through that, I cried. There was a lot of emotions. My wife and I had just went through a miscarriage that same week. And so like, if you're talking about like being centered, like rooted in your body, you need to be present. And I think touching grass helps that. And the reason why I tell people to breathe and to take a few days to collect themselves is because you want to put your best foot forward during an interview process. And if you are angry and listen, I've talked to so many people, and I know Will has, and I know Chris has, to spin back there, who are both amazing recruiters. We talk to people all the time that are carrying some heavy, heavy baggage. And we can sense that when we talk to you, and so can hiring managers. And I'm sure Warren can say the same thing too. There's a lot of hiring managers that may want to hire you, but if you're carrying that trauma, not getting that addressed, is going to affect how you interview, which is eventually going to help you or not help you land a job.
Gosh, and so, Brianna, moving to you, PM also sort of helping to build community. Like, what are you seeing, particularly in the market right now, that's unique about this mode, particularly in tech? And I'm curious your thoughts too, and how do you think people's ability to navigate those spaces with grace and kindness for themselves and for others, why is that so important?
I appreciate that. Now, disclaimer, if you can't find me on LinkedIn after this is probably because they blocked me. But I will say single-handedly, I know what that feels like to feel like seeking that validation, and the validation comes through getting that offer letter. And you know, how many times can a spirit accept rejection? And at such a volume, right? Because if you're putting out, you know, the output is like 100 applications per day, right? That's what the gurus tell us. But then you're doubling down on the amount of rejections you may possibly receive. Like, how do you give yourself grace? So I had to stop banging down the doors of LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, okay? I had to stop. I had to remove myself from the process. I had to check myself. I had to go into prayer time because I was seeking validation in all the wrong places when I was called and qualified well before any of this. So now it was personal. So I had to just get into a space where no one else can pull me out. It was just me and my Heavenly Father, where it's like, okay, let's talk about it. What season are you in? Identifying that. Because you can't just keep going, you know, back to back and not taking a moment for yourself to understand why it's happening. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to just sit down and be still. Maybe it's time for a career pivot. I remember looking at my daughters. This was maybe 2 years ago. And, you know, they were young, really young at the time. And I was in a job and, you know, it felt like, you know, the bills were getting paid, but, you know, I had more, you know, more money towards the end. And I remember looking at my babies and I'm like, we're going to have a better life. And I had to make, that was probably 11 o'clock at night. And I went into the spirit and I'm like, Lord, now what? Because I already said it with my mouth. So it took me 2 years, Warren. So this was no like overnight anything. Yeah. But I decided that a change needed to happen, but it started with me. So I took a course on Coursera. It was the Google Project Management course. Now you can go as fast or as slow as you want. It's your season. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It took me a year to finish. A part of that was self-doubt. Not sure where this is going to go. There are people who are like 5 years in. How can I stand out? Right. Or where do I get this experience from? It's not enough to say, oh, well, you know, I take care of my kids. I got to manage the household budget. That's not enough because now you're competing against thousands who are laid off in the market. So how do you stand out? So it wasn't until I met my neighbor who poured into me. We had a parallel pathway. She took the Google Project Management course, but she gave herself 30 days, okay? She treated it like a job. 8 to 5, she was working on her certification. By the end of her 30 days, she created a profile on Upwork. She ended up being her first client within the third day being on the platform. And she tripled her income. So it was inspiring to me. Now, what did I do with that information? Nothing yet. Because what about me, right? Can I do the same thing? But I betted on myself. It still took me 6 to 8 months before I landed my first client on Upwork as well. I had 16 connects left. And I know you didn't even ask for all this.
No, it's good.
16 connects left because you have to bid on proposals.
Sure.
And I said, Lord, if this is for me, I receive it. But if it's not, I will step back. I saw a job description that I felt like, okay, I identify with this, not because I wanted to challenge myself, but because I felt like I have a higher chance of getting it. So I was actually playing small. So interview, vibe immediately with the COO of the company because you don't know who you're interviewing with, which turned out to be the COO of Italian's Wine, one of the largest, kid you not, one of the largest Black-owned wine.
Hello?
Hey, Khalil, I can hear you, but I cannot hear them in the conference room.
I think they can hear us in the conference room, by the way, y'all.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I can hear Kenesha and John, but I just got on, so sorry I'm late. But I was wondering if it was something I did. I heard her at first, and I was like, what just
So
happened?"
we lost audio about 10-15 seconds ago.
And was loving the story. Loving it.
Great. How about now? Can y'all hear us?
Check Snapchat.
Yes.
Everything's good.
Yep.
Okay, so with that being said,
In conclusion.
in conclusion, so I end up getting a notification from Upwork. And it scared me at first because somebody had invited me to interview. And I'm like, how dare they invite me? This must be a scam. But I'm still not sure of myself. So I went through the interview process. I'm still on high alert. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. You probably want my social security, 48 minutes after I interviewed. But long story short, it was for a company called Social Crowd. And I am their customer success manager and their project manager, and I have built out their program.
Gosh,
And this is all between January of this year to present day. Transformation. But it's not off my own strength. It was the fact, though, that I did start to believe in myself and what I've been given. So circling back to your initial question, we are in a unique space where you do not have to rely on job boards to get you where you need to go. Your skills will speak for itself. Your talent will bring the opportunities to you. But you have to make that shift. And you'll start to see that they're just going to come by the droves. That's all I have to say.
Well, thanks for coming out.
No, there's so much in that. One thing that stands out when you talk about yourself, one is it is the passion, but two, there is this strong sense of like self grounded at the center of this, where it's easy in moments, and maybe Regina, you can touch on this too, how stress and anxiety can almost, if you imagine yourself in like a base, solid, stress can kind of pull us left of center, right of center of that sense of self. And so when we talk about grounding, we talk about these practical techniques. Taylor talked about taking a break. But why is that so important, though, in particular, to be cognizant of when I'm feeling this way and coming back to base?
Well, it's pausing to actually feel what's going on. Because when I was speaking earlier about the positive stress, it was the positive stress that made you stop and do something different. Like you were stressed. Yes. It was uncomfortable, but you paused and you're like, I'm going to do this, create a plan and do something. And so really that it's self-care, right? And I think that's a buzz term too. Like one thing you like, going to get your nails done, get your hair. No, like actually pausing and caring for yourself. What do you need in that moment? It's probably not always, we tend to do this, beating ourselves up. Well, you should have, you didn't do this right. You would have got it if you did this, like not beneficial, like shaming, blaming. It's really kind of like taking a moment, caring for ourselves in the moment in the way that we would like our young children or our dog, you know what I'm saying? Like caring for ourselves that way. We tend to treat ourselves in ways that we wouldn't treat anyone else. So being kind to ourselves, grounding ourselves, what do I need? How do I want to move forward? And like you guys have mentioned, maybe it's not that job anymore. And what can I do to not just quickly exit, but make a plan to where I can exit and be comfortable. But that's taking the time to stop and kind of sit with what it is you're feeling, explore it to get an understanding of what you can do next.
That's amazing. I always think about it in two lenses, the behavioral, which you touch on, and then also the tactical, like what are the things we can do, aside from not saying the wellness part isn't essential, it absolutely is, because it opens up the ability to what's on Coursera, what speaks to me, and then maybe Taylor, your thoughts on, I think you're great at this, always an ear to the ground, always looking for what's happening. Why is that so important for the job seeker to just be cognizant of what's happening in the market, upskilling? You touched on it even when you post today, but I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I think right now, I think my post today was like, what you've done will not work now. And we are in, I feel like COVID was like, does anybody else feel like life's going by really, really fast right now? Is it just me? I had this conversation with somebody. They're like, we feel like COVID like put everybody in a spin cycle and like spit us out, and it's just been like nuts ever since. But I think what's happened too, so you have that, which does not really answer the question, but the last like 2 years has been rough, right? The market sucks. There's just no way, and there's no way around it. I thought we'd be out of this shit by like Q2, Q1. We're not. To be honest, we have no idea when we're gonna get out of this. You know, I was talking to Will earlier. Will's a recruiter here, who I respect a ton. You know, he says it's tough. You know, where I'm at now, we're like an Upwork at Gun.io, and like we're a talent marketplace, and it's hard right now. Everything's a grind. The job seekers right now, everything's a grind, right? Like there are hundreds of thousands of applicants per job right now. Like you have to do something to stand out, right? I've talked to so many founders and founders and CEOs and VPs of engineering who like basically have like are going through like career like pivots. Who said career pivots just now? One of y'all did, right? Career pivots, right? And so it's happening. I guess you could say went through a career pivot, right? And so for me, it's like be open to change, be open, but you have to listen to what the market is demanding and go after that, right? Like boot camp right now, prime example. Everyone's spitting out front end React developers right now, right? Stop that shit. Like there's enough. We've reached max capacity at this point, right? No more React. And so like for me, it's like I put out a post and it spread like wildfire about like back-end engineering, right? If I get a Python engineer on our platform, like who the fuck's gonna do Python now, right? Like we got anybody? And so it's like one of these things where like you have to observe the market, and that's why following people like Will, like Spin in the back, like myself, like these individuals up here, you got to follow these people in tech. And I'm not talking about influencers. I'm just talking about people who know the market, know the tech industry, and listen to them and be open to receiving that information, because a lot of us in here want feedback, but nobody actually wants to get feedback. Right. And again, from a recruiter perspective, I have told so many individuals what they should do, and they get defensive with me. It's like, I'm just trying to help your career.
No, you touched on something that I think when we talk about change, why it's so hard, and maybe you can speak from just firsthand experience, but tying your identity to a body of work, to a job, to a company, there's benefits to that for sure. There's passion, also challenges when that changes instantly. So how can you speak to, maybe Breyuna, just your even identity in this? How do you maintain that? So I am still a mom, right? I have that responsibility. But now I'm a project manager. Now I'm customer success, and I'm taking on other people's emotions, trying to help them be successful. What is that process like? How does identity play into your day-to-day?
Yeah, definitely. I think first and foremost, it's healthy to understand that it's okay to not be okay, and to take it one day at a time. Do like the most pressing items today, right? So I would say first and foremost, just starting off knowing like, listen, you are in this position for a reason. You are more than capable. And this is talking to yourself, right? Starting your day off, giving yourself grace, and then finding time throughout the day, which I'm still working on, y'all. Like I'm a work in progress. Finding time throughout the day to just step away from the computer.
How do you do that?
Well, I bring my phone with me.
Yeah. Weird. I think that's on TikTok. It says I'm on my medium screen all day, and I give myself the pleasure of going to my small screen, and then I really treat myself going to the big screen.
And like we joke about it, but it's for real. So basically what I'm saying is that just no 2 days are ever like, it is what it is. You may feel like, yeah, I'm getting it today. I'm caught up, and then boom, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. It's the end of the day. Now it's on my mind because I'm like, well, when do I need to have this done? Like right now. So I think just know that it's okay. It'll get done.
Yeah.
It'll get done. None of this, unless you're in healthcare, none of this is like her dad. You know what I'm saying? So it's not because somebody else may be on fire, like I have the fire hose right here, but you're gonna be okay. We can put some ointment on it. You know what I'm saying? So it's fine.
It's gonna be fine. And what I hear in that too, and Regina, I'm curious your thoughts. I'm trying to bring back maybe some of because we use some of these clinical terms, and they have meaning, an actual clinical definition, and then treatments. And so we talk about radical self-acceptance, acceptance theory. Can you talk a little bit about that? I heard a little bit of that in what Breyuna was saying.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
It's really kind of what's in my control and what's not. And a lot of things that we try to control from day to day are just not in our control. And so we're spending so much energy on things that we can't do anything about. So trying to take that energy and care for self, and which is something we can control, even though sometimes that feels out of control too. But and spending that energy on things that we can do and accepting what is. So this is what I'm hearing. I'm not in the tech world, but this is the climate that we're in. You know, we have to accept that this is the climate that they're in. This is the change that we're going through. These are the things that are happening. So we have to accept that first, and then we can deal with what that means for us, right? Like, but at first, I think sometimes we try to run away from what is and accepting what is. And I wish it was still like this. In a lot of ways, it's a grief process. Like we're grieving. Change in itself is a grief process, and growth also comes with a level of grief. So normalizing the discomfort and the pain and the grief circle that happens of anger, bargaining, resentment, all those things that happen in the grief process, accepting that this is what I have to go through to get to whatever is next.
How I've heard it in my own sort of therapy is simply put, it's like the power, so what? So what if I lose this job?
Yeah.
And allow your brain to go into that place and start to see all the options you have. Because more often than not, when we have that moment, we feel really trapped in that. But that acceptance, or so what? Like I lost my job. Okay, great. What's next? And so to that point, Taylor, just like when we see the market shifting now, when we say it's looking bad, you know, getting into that more tactical advice, you talk about people following people in their community. Where are the jobs happening? What are some other things people should be looking for? And maybe we can get specific. Is it resume?
Sure.
Is it services like Gun, services like Vaco? How do we make use of community?
It's all of it, right? I mean, obviously, you know, absolutely love what Vaco does, and you know, highly recommend if everybody in here talks to these amazing two individuals over here, Will and Chris, and you know, obviously check out Gun if you want to. But I think I want to overemphasize community. Like everybody in here, like should get everybody's LinkedIn before you leave. Like everybody, like you should never walk out of a room from a professional building like this and not have everybody's, especially because this is a small group, and I prefer small groups, to be honest with you, because there's so much more. If there was like 50 people in here, let's be honest, none of us would talk to each other. I don't care, right? So like, it's so much easier to talk to like 11, 10 people than it is 50 people. So take advantage of that, because here's the deal. Like right now, everyone's getting jobs, and I'm seeing on mine, I was talking to Will about this, like my issues that I'm seeing in the market is companies calling me like, hey, I want to use you. Then it's like, one of my friends have referred somebody, we're good. Ooh. Hey, I literally had an engineering manager call me, or a CTO call me 2 weeks ago. He was like, you know, I've known him, we've met each other 10 years ago, and he called me, which is again, our relationship building, community building. And he called me, he goes, hey, I need 2 engineers. I said, absolutely, I got you, say no more. And I sent him 2 engineers, He was like, and then he went dark on us. And I was like, what the hell, what's going on? He was like, hey, just want to give you a heads up. Some other recruiting agency like undercut you guys tremendously from a fee perspective. So where it just didn't make sense to us. For Chris and here, they were like 14%. Right. And I was like, it's like, bro, listen, I love you, dude, but you're gonna get your own problems with that as is. So just come back to me when you know. And but again, like, but so you gotta leverage recruiters, you gotta leverage your community, and you gotta leverage like networking platforms, right? Networking platforms are LinkedIn, on Twitter, especially in tech Twitter, right? Like going to conferences, obviously plug and render here, right? I'm telling you, by the way, we gotta raffle those 2 tickets, by the way. We gotta make sure. Yeah, we gotta be like, go great off. So, but like literally, like Render has opened so many doors for me. I've been so blessed to be a part of the organization for the last 2 years, and I'm not just saying that because like I'm an ambassador, and they're announcing it like on Monday, so I'm gonna say it here. But I'm hosting again and emceeing the event again. But like it's changed my career just going to Render, right? And like, who knows? Somebody in this room could be your next hiring manager, or could be the engineer that gets placed at a company and you met them here and they're like, well, I met so-and-so at the Render Black Codes meetup. They'd be a great fit for this role. And then they call you. Like, that's how this shit works right now. It's not mass applying. Now, I get people calling me in pitchforks. Like, well, I got a job because I mass applied. Well, good on fucking you. Right? But for the most part, the majority of us aren't doing that. The majority of us are doing it through our friends and our networks.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that tees up, I think, really talking about the organizations that are really in the space right now. And so I'd love to learn a little bit about render show of hands, how many are familiar with render? Okay,
But
awesome. So maybe it is more of a soft pitch, a little hard sell.
Yeah.
For
But-
sure. So speaking to render, highly recommend if you all are able to come out this summer, we would love to have you. It is June 12th through the 14th, so Wednesday through Friday. So if you're able to get away, highly recommend. What you're gonna find is workshops and opportunities to network. And I would definitely say that the community within render itself is just people's people. Like there is no gatekeeping, and I think that's the problem, definitely in this industry. You tried the traditional route of knocking on the doors of LinkedIn and recruiters and doing that. That's horrible advice. They don't know me, and I'm like, hey, do you have a job? But coming to render, I've met so many wonderful individuals. Taylor, for example, I was just kidding when I was like, I love you. I love it.
I just want to just probably turn it on.
It's recording now, we're gonna show you that, we're gonna put just that.
But what I'm saying is I didn't really know how to network before.
Nobody knows.
No one does. Nobody talks about it. It's just go out there and say hi. Not everybody is an extrovert, and we need to normalize that. But when you're able to get into pods and you're able to, obviously there is a like-mindedness. Whatever that could be, whether you're a data analyst or a project manager or, you're a therapist, you will find your people because there's a little bit of all of us in every one of us, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend, it will be life-changing, very transformative experience, and you will not leave the same.
You also will be exhausted for about 2 weeks afterwards. But I'll also tell you this, I've had this pushback a little bit about tickets being expensive. Listen, it's a hell of an event. So the ticket price is worth it. However, you don't even need to buy a ticket to attend. There's activations going on after hours. Literally you can roll into a Netflix meetup. I went to a Netflix happy hour last year and hung out with all the Netflix team. People throw private dinners. Now if you're going to the event, you probably know about those more, but get on Render's Discord. And there's everybody's doing stuff. And then, like I said, just go get a hotel room and just park yourself downtown and just I don't know, hit me up, hit up Breyuna. We'll be glad to obviously help you out. You don't need a ticket, but I do have to say the ticket, it helps to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback real quick, and then also too, when we think about the value, the return on investments that you are getting up and close and personal with the decision makers. And I think that's something you're not going to find anywhere else. We're talking about the partners like Zillow, for example, and Amazon to name a few, that you're going to be able to go up to them, introduce yourself, and now they can put a name to the person. So when you send your resume, which I highly recommend, having your updated resume ready to rock and roll on a Google Drive so that you can share it. There's no reason to not have it readily available, but also too, please don't spend too much time on your resume because you're going to show up. You are who you are. You know what I'm saying? Through the conversation, they may immediately pick you up just because they love your spirit. Everything else can be taught. So long story short, do not spend too much time on your resume. Do have it ready. So when you're ready to just send it off, there's no need to wait because time is currency and every time, it matters.
It really is the nerd Grammys. It really is the nerd Grammys.
And I'm curious too, familiarity with Gun.io by chance, show of hands, Gun.
That's right.
Not too bad. So also again, maybe soft pitch on hard sale.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, we're talent marketplace. So what does that mean? We have a product actually built. It's really cool on the hiring side. Basically, we've developed 3 kind of features. One, if you're a job seeker, you sign up for our platform. Our platform has its own job application kind of platform. So you can see all the jobs on our platform now. So if you sign up, see all the jobs on the platform, you can submit to it just like a traditional job posting. On the hiring side, it's really cool. We just relaunched our entire platform where you can now sign up and you can search, Warren can go on if he needs a developer, could never talk to me, go sign up, create a profile, and we've open sourced our entire database. So essentially you can plug in parameters of what you need and then it spits out all relevant developers from our thousands of developers on our database you can hire from. Then we just rolled out an AI feature where you can cut, copy, and paste your entire job description into our AI feature, and it matches candidates based off your job description. But you gotta have a good job description. So.
Wow. And so, I think a lot of really great resources around community and then also finding a job. But, want to also plug Mindfully Rooted.
Yeah.
Your practice. Would you mind telling us about?
It's just me, a solo private practice, but I focus on life transitions, community. You keep hearing that. That's like really big for me, and it's really big in mental health in general. We tend to isolate. We tend to think we're the only one going through something. Community in a workplace is obviously amazing. You want community there, but your personal community, making sure you're staying in touch with people, finding people if you don't have them. So I work through life transitions, anxiety, depression. I work a lot with families and couples in conflict, but my office is over in the Antioch side of town and right across from the new Tanger outlets. I don't know if
There you go.
Yeah. It's not good for me to be there every day.
Yeah.
There's a Coach outlet. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And I used to be over here in this area in group private practice, and I started over in my office in April.
So I want to point out something real quick.
Yeah.
Pivot. In the last 6 months,
Yeah.
And so, it's hard to think about
you haven't pivoted. You stay the same. I think same. There's people on campus over there. Yeah. Someone's guessing. Someone's got to be wrong.
You touched on it, the pandemic and what I think that was for a lot of us. And you talked about time distortion as a phenomenon. I'm sure there's going to be studies that sort of speak to this and how trauma does affect how we perceive time and our sort of relative sense of space. But in that, I think it is important to do that inventory, strength inventory. And maybe Regina, start with you this time. When we talk about change and pivoting and people looking for that next thing, why do we take account of the things that feel like strengths? And sometimes strengths are, I think I mean this in the literal, so like CBT sort of model, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, I was like, what's that?
Just smiling eyes.
Yeah.
Smiling eyes.
Career. Sounds great.
But,
Sounds great.
but strengths, why is that important when we bring it back to that notion of grounding and taking a sense of self and inventory and finding strength? What does that mean to you? And then how do you think people can start to do some of that work?
Yeah. We have to know what our strengths are to kind of play to them, right? And then that helps us also know where our weaknesses are to get other people to fill in for those strengths or the community. Part of it, but it's really strengths focused, is focusing on what we can do is going to get you better productivity, better change. I was just in that position. I was sitting like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore, but what do I want to do? Questioning if I felt like I had enough like skill and experience to go out on my own. Should I be doing this? Like I had all that same experience, but it was just like, I kept coming in that exploration with myself. I kept coming back to like, no, girl, you could do this. Like, and I see other people do it. I'm like, and I could do it better than them. They're doing it. I for sure can do it. And so just knowing like, what do I need to do? Now I need to get a list of like how to start a business, what all the, all the things, legal things that go into that and all that. But making that list of, okay, now what do I need help with? And just what am I good at doing? And so focusing on what I do well, in the strengths. Because we all have strengths. It's just sometimes we don't pay enough attention to them, and we focus on our limitations, and that does not get us anywhere.
Gosh, and I touch on that because I honestly think the resume, if it's done well, looks like that. It looks like this really self-congratulatory explanation of all the things you contributed and you've changed. But Taylor, to that point, it's like when you look at resumes and you don't see people screaming from the rooftops their accomplishments, what they've contributed to.
Yeah.
Why is that so detrimental to the job applicant? And then also so hard, maybe put some empathy for the job or the hiring manager. Why is it hard for me to really be excited about your resume if I don't see what you did, what you're excited about?
So I grew up Southern Baptist.
Okay.
And it was, as a kid, it's this be seen, not heard type situation, right? And for this loud person, that was a little challenging. But I grew up, so like it's funny that I do all this content and I'm doing my blog. I do a YouTube blog once a day or once a week, and today's is my YouTube blog. And I did a little segment. I'm glad you brought this up because I was talking to the camera. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I was literally talking to the camera. I was like, anybody in here know who Elise Myers is on TikTok? She great mental health advocate and all that. And I was watching her YouTube today just to get inspiration. And I was like, man, her stuff's like so funny and like it's fun. And it's like I'm just fucking talking to the camera saying I'm having an olive oil Starbucks drink today, right? And like so like we all have our self-doubts. And I think one thing that I've had to become better at, and I encourage all of us to become better at, is double down on your strengths, right? Especially right now, hiring managers and Warren, I'm curious if you need this in your organization or you see this in your organization. Hiring managers are niching down, and they need specific engineers to solve a specific problem. And like you are hired for a specific problem, right? There are companies right now, they're still hiring, they all have problems, but they need a person to solve this problem. They don't need a person to come in and be a generalist. We saw the generalists pop off over the last 2 years because when the market ripped during COVID, you could spell React and everybody got a job, right? So like now, everyone's been laid off now. And so now companies, they still need to hire, but they need a specific problem hired, right? And so my encouragement to you all, and this is what I've done with my job search, like I had to sit and I had to figure out what I was good at. I was great at creating content. I was great at driving revenue, and I was great at building community, right? And so what I did is I came up with this pitch to where when I was on the job search, I would sit and I had probably 20, 25 companies I was interviewing for, right? And I was super blessed to even have that many. I had some people come at me on Twitter like, you got a job in 4 weeks. Like, fuck you. Like, damn, like, be happy, right? Like, you can celebrate other people's wins. But the thing is with me is like, the reason why I was so effective is because I sat in front of founders and CEOs. I said, here's my value prop. If it doesn't align, then I move on. And when you can sit in front of a senior leader, and I figured this out, if you can sit in front of a senior leader and go, listen, if I'm not it, I'll move on. Not many people won't say that. And what happens is when you say that to senior leaders, they go, oh, okay. Because they're not used to people speaking confidently and speaking to their strengths. So I encourage you all today, especially the hiring market right now, know what your strengths are, take some time, write them down, and then come up with a pitch, and then send DMs. Like I was talking to a senior engineering manager lately. He said he got laid off. He and his wife were like crying a bunch in the first 2 weeks because he wasn't getting like feedback and he wasn't getting interviews. And he goes, you know what? He goes, I finally started DMing hiring managers, CTOs, VPs of engineering to go, here's my value prop. Here's what I bring to the table. Do you want to chat or not? He goes, my LinkedIn DM rate went up 50%. He said, I was batting 500. Every 2 messages I sent with that, I got a response back. Now, he goes, the response was maybe a no. Right. He goes, at least I was getting responses at that point. And I'm really big, and I'll stop yapping here. The job search is about getting at bats. Is anybody here a baseball fan? All right, I'm not a baseball fan. Exactly. I'm a college baseball fan. My South Carolina Gamecocks made it to the regionals, but whatever. So all that being said, one thing that I know about baseball, because I'm a hockey guy, really, is that you need at bats, right? I think like you can be in the Hall of Fame as a baseball player at bat 250. I think, right? Right. You strike out 3/4 of the fucking time, right? 3/4, and you're in the Hall of Fame.
Gotta shoot the shot.
Think about that for a second. 3/4 of the time, baseball players are failing, and they get to be inducted potentially into the Hall of Fame. So why don't we feel more comfortable with rejection?
Oh gosh, no.
Right, and it's kind of like what you were talking about, you got to be confident. You've got to find it within yourself. Now, granted, I joke around, say my dating life in high school set me up for the job search, but just be confident in who you are and walk in that.
That's good.
No, I mean, I really think, Breyuna, your story, there was this sense of, well, okay, I have to put myself out there. I have to do Upwork. I mean, I was a designer before I was a developer, and putting yourself out there for work, it is scary. Well, what is that process like for you? How did you find that voice inside of you to be confident?
I just wanted more, simply put, and I knew that my life wasn't going to change if I didn't do something about it today. You could wait 6 months from now, you could wait a year from now, that's fine. But then look at how much time has gone by where you could have done something today. Or even if it's 1%, even if, like, first and foremost, I applaud, you all up here and everyone who's sitting here the fact that you showed up today. You could have done anything else with your time, but you wanted to be in a room with movers and shakers such as yourselves. So that's a huge kudos. So the next step is action. So because I'm like, being on social media, it can rob you of your joy. Because you're looking at the next person thinking like, wow, like I wish I had a Lambo, but
Or on LinkedIn, just other people getting jobs. It's just not there too.
it would be nice to have some extra money in my pocket, not having to move
Pleased
things
to
over.
announce, I got a job, and I'm like, damn, all right, well.
So I had to shut social media down. I went on a 6-month hiatus because I needed to see what could I do. I needed to see what would happen if I blocked out the noise. And if I just focused on what the goal was. I didn't have like a mission like, okay, I'm gonna get hired in this X amount of time. I think that's putting too much pressure on yourself. I think just by saying like, I'm going to create a profile today. That's the first step. Next step is, okay, I'm going to think about the services I want to offer. Now I have my bio, and you can put emojis in your bio. That's the real you. If a VP has an issue with the real you, do you really want to work with them? Because now that's the real you. So I have emojis in my bio because that's who I am. And I have been blessed to be in positions where I'm working with the C-suite level executives, and they have personalities just like me.
Yeah.
We just want to get the job done. And I had to be okay with just being myself and not worrying like if I don't get this opportunity or that opportunity. So just being able to show up, first and foremost, taking it one day at a time, giving yourself grace, and knowing that it always works out. It always works out.
No, I'm not a therapist, play one on TV because it's what we do at Therify day in, day out. And so, but, I hear so much in your story that I think is actually really applicable in a lot of use cases, right? She talks about finding your own pace. Earlier, you said marathon, not a sprint. And really this, we talk about anxiety, depression, we talk about, and so we haven't touched on this word, rumination. This ability to say this is going to happen, and you allow yourself to fixate on it, over fixate on it.
Plus, that's a big word.
And then,
Write that down a little
and
bit.
then it paralyzes you. And allowing yourself to scale back and say, today, the goal is the profile, that's meaningful. Because when you said 1%, that one step for you is a big leap in reality. And so I guess, Regina, in your perspective and thinking about maybe more, again, practical steps people can take when it comes to how do I start this journey of inventory of strengths? How do I start to find my own pace? Is it some of the things like you talk about, like a social media detox? Is that a good place to start? What are your thoughts?
I think it varies. I think one of the biggest things is relationship with self. I think we focus so much on external relationships, which obviously we're talking about community is important, but a lot of us don't have a relationship with ourselves where we're talking about knowing what we're feeling in our body, remembering to feed it and eat, and basic things of caring for self. So it's really taking the time to stop all of it. So it helps not taking in social media. It helps, stop being toxic, feeding yourself anything toxic. Just kind of like, who am I? What is it I want? What is it I like and I don't like? Because that's what's going to get you better opportunities when you show up authentic and you are yourself. That's more sustainable in workplaces and things. But like taking the time to do that. And then with change, we talked about earlier, change is hard. Changing ourselves is hard. Going through change is hard. And I like what you said, because that is the best way to set goals is start small. And be like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. That is how? What is the step? Like, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to start this business. What is the first step? Like maybe I'm going to drink water today. And then tomorrow I'm going to get up, I'm going to drink water again. And then once I get through a few weeks of drinking water, then maybe I'll cut out whatever out of my diet. And the same thing in personal development too. I'm going to start my day and not pick up my phone immediately once I open my eyes. I'm going to be phone free for the first whatever amount. It can be small. It can be 5 minutes. It can be, whatever those things are that work for you, because we're all different. Really being in intentionality as well with our time, with what we choose to fixate on and spend our time. Like we were saying, time is money. It's like an investment, right? Like, so what am I investing my time in? What am I investing my actual money in? What am I investing my mental space in? And it really should be centering around ourselves and our well-being, because when we center ourselves and our well-being, then we're able to show up and help other people and do jobs and, be places. And a lot of that is, it doesn't have to, I'm a big proponent of I call it self-therapy, like self-healing. Of course, there's therapists out there. There's a lot of us. It's saturated, and it does take a lot of work to find the right one. And I know that can be really difficult and off-putting to continue to do that. But there are so many resources and great people that you can read books and, do a lot of self-journaling, things like that, of prioritizing your well-being before we're externalizing and, putting other people's needs before our own.
I want to speak to that real quick. So basically I had, I had my first bout of like legit depression in 2018 and went into counseling for the very first time. And I was in marriage counseling, and our marriage counselor was like, hey, I think you're really, this is depression.
Yeah.
So I, did first counselor, and then, it kind of reared its ugly head again, probably about a year or two ago. And to the point where my wife was like, listen, like you're becoming unbearable to live with. And it's funny. And I try to be open about this stuff because I live my life online.
Yeah.
Right. First thing I touch when I wake up. Right. Like I'm always on social, and I'm trying to work on that in my marriage about getting off my phone as much. And one of the things, so lately I was having these like looking back on it now, these anxiety attacks. Like I would snap at my wife, I would feel myself kind of shut down, like my body would vibrate. I didn't really know. So it got to the point where it kind of got to this really bad place. And I was like, I got to do something. And my wife was like, well, like she kind of went through a nutritionist. And I was like, I already went through one of her nutritionists. It didn't work out. I was like, I don't know how to do another one. She goes, trust me, this one's different. I said, okay. And so we cut out gluten and we cut out caffeine. My anxiety's gone.
Wow.
So when we talk about taking care of ourselves, now granted, I'm eyeing that pizza like a mother, but I'm not even there yet. But like every day I have a choice, right? And I want to take care of myself because I want to be better for my family, my wife, my daughter, my soon-to-be baby boy here in 4 weeks. Right. And so it's like, yeah, so fucking terrified. So I basically I knew I had to get myself in a better spot to not only serve my family, but also serve any business that I'm a part of.
Yes.
So I had to take that step, but you have to realize you have to really take a self-inventory.
That's so real. And I want to touch on this real quick, and Breyuna, I want to get your thoughts on some things too, but we have what we call like the central nervous system, right? This is anything and everything we are interacting with. It responds to, it has to, and that's how our body's way of processing. And when you think about caffeine, excessive amounts, I mean, if you have like a Starbucks triple shot, that's a lot of caffeine, right? Even if you are attenuated or you've had a lot of it, and so it's normal for you, that means your nervous system is still operating at that pace. And so
I was almost in cortisol failure. When I got my blood work done, my first nutritionist goes, are you stressed? And I was like, girl. And basically she's like, you're almost at failure. Basically my body was pumping so much cortisol through because I was drinking a cold brew every day. I was anxious and I was eating gluten, which just actually, I kind of pinpoint everything. Gluten actually causes most of my anxiety, not caffeine. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what it does to your body.
now anything that I'll let the clinicians.
Not me.
Think about spiking sugar, insulin.
Yeah.
Gluten, of course, it's basically inflammatory.
Yeah.
And so central nervous system still has to respond, but maybe you can give us a little.
And it just, all of those things keep us on like.
Yeah, full
right
tilt.
here. And then so like a teapot about to go all the time, that's terrible for your body. And that's where anxiety can show up in physical ailments of like, stomach issues, such very common for like Crohn's disease to be, tied to those types of things. And so a lot of times your body will, if you don't stop and take care of it, your body's going to take care of itself. And it's typically going to end in being very ill and shutting down. And, so, like being, I see people like all the energy drinks and, like all that stuff, people just down them because we're really focused on performance. Right?
Yes.
Keep going and going and going. But it's not sustainable long term, and it harms us,
One real quick, but it's like our generation may be the first that typical
Millennials, right?
Millennials.
Yeah, you gotta address it.
Elvin,
We're talking to Gen Zs in here.
But Crohn's disease, colon cancer, for the first times, probably like the past 20 years that you're monitoring this stuff, the age demographic has shifted 10 years younger. And so what used to be screening, you say like 40, 35 is now literally like 25, 35. And you think about all the things you touch on. It's so important to be cognizant of these things. And the body, and our ability to check in with the body is critical. And my shoulder hurts, my back hurts, my lower back hurts. What's going on? Are you checking in with yourself? Have you seen a doctor? Are you talking to someone like Regina? It's like, you've said this a few times in these past few sessions. Maybe you should go see your PCP. It's important to do that type of stuff because cancer it's a thing to be mindful of. And so I just say that we're all cognizant of it. We all drink energy drinks. We also have these things, just sort of say that. But to that point, not cancer, but I think, why, to bring it back to community, why is it so important that people get to go to places or experiences like Render? I can speak to the first time I went to a Black Codes event. It was MLK Hackathon. And I tell you, it's the first time I walked into a room and saw Black and brown faces with like computers talking about technology. I was crying, y'all. It was a thing. It's just, you're used to being a one of none in a space. But you think about a place like Render, where everyone is coming together and saying, the goal here is to celebrate and to know. Why is that so important? What is the value there that you see?
A few years, no, starting in 2012, I was in food and beverage. Simply, I was a server, and I was with Darden for a very long time. Absolutely adore them as a hospitality group in general. And to this day, I do not have a bachelor's degree. I walk the halls of colleges, and that's about the size of it. And I just felt like there's got to be something else. Like, what is my life going to look like? I can't just be a server for the rest of my life. It is physically very laborious on the body. There is no such thing as a work-life balance, especially like when you have family. You're working late, you're working on the weekends, those are prime time. So, and my mom was always concerned. She's like, Bree, what's your plans? And I'm like, I'm fine, like I'm making money. But that's not enough. I'm getting older. So I didn't know, I didn't have a plan, but I knew, again, I wanted better. And my best friend, who's here today, she introduced me to customer success. That was the break into tech. And because I remember telling myself, like, it'll be really cool to have a job where all day long, like, I'm able to just be a people person. It's like customer service on steroids. I'm still able to be of service without having to be in a restaurant, right? So it's just heaven sent, right? So I get into this role, and now I'm scared because I have to talk to people that I don't know. And it's like, you're doing the same thing, but there's levels to this. This is the first time that I'm seeing women of color who look like me in these spaces. This is my first time seeing just individuals making money, and you're not having to wait until you're 60 to do it. I'm able to break generational cycles in my household. That's the blessing. And to know, I always felt like not having the degree was going to be my blocker. Because when I go on, to LinkedIn and applying on, these applications, they're like, bachelor's degree. It could be in arts. And I'm just like, I still don't have a bachelor's degree. So it felt like I wasn't good enough. But I had to get past that because, and that's my testimony, that wasn't enough to keep me from getting into these spaces and places. And now Render has offered, an opportunity where we can all come together under one roof, unapologetically, and we can help each other out. It's not, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. These are people who, like, they have nothing to gain from this. It's all for us to be able to, meet new friends. It really is about community. That's important because sometimes, like, just know you're not alone. It can feel like that, but you should be able to know, like, you can contact Taylor. You can reach out to Bree. You can reach out to Warren and Regina. You have friends. This goes beyond, just a discussion, and that's the goal. So when you get to Render, shake hands, kiss babies, walk puppies, whatever you gotta do, but just know that we're all
Shake
people.
babes.
Don't do that.
Don't shake babies. So,
I know, very well aware.
so with that, it's like, just know, like, we're all flesh and blood.
Mhm.
It's a title?
Yeah.
Like, you earned that. It's not to take away from you, but it's not enough to keep you away from being able to, hey, how you doing? How's your day today?
Well, I think breaking bread too, like, that's what I love about Render. So Southern Baptist skin coming out, closest way to someone's heart's through their stomach, right? Literally, like, last year, I was having dinner, they did a nice little dinner, and I was sitting down, it was an all-female, table with me. And they were all engineering leaders. And I was just sitting there and I was like, just catching up, hanging out with all of them. I was like, you can't find this anywhere else. And like, one of them was at Google, Sarah Drasner. Another one was Kelly Vaughn, director of engineering at Spot A, a dear friend of mine. And then there was, I'm blanking on two, Emily something. Anyways, we were all around just hanging out. And it's like, when I was on job search, I was like, hey, just checking in.
Yeah.
Right now, none of them panned out, but they all got my resume in front of.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of these things where, like, I mean, Angie Jones, another one, right? Angie Jones, a great Angie Jones Java champion and on the Web5 space now. I when I was looking, she works at Block, right? Jack Dorsey's Web5 company. I was like, hey, are you guys hiring? She goes, yeah, here's my code, submit to this. You'd probably be great for this. Right. Gun snatched me up before I could do that. But like, again, all of that was built at Render. And again, I'm not saying that. I mean, I go to a ton of tech conferences. Sure. Render's different.
Gosh, and it makes me think, Regina, the name of your practice, Mindfully Rooted. Would you mind telling the people like why that name? What does that mean?
It's just funny. I was sitting there like trying to, come up with all these catchphrases, like who am I? Because that's what talking about our strengths. Like, so I have to do that to set myself apart in the therapy world. There's a lot of us. What do I do and what I do well? Like niching down to like what I do, and I'm liberation focused in everything I do. So I'm trying to like, liberation therapy, that sounds weird, but I gotta get to like, okay, and also connecting the mental health aspect to it of really what I do is help people be mindfully rooted. And that's a play on, being Black, I'm Black, and like liberation and freedom, but also being mindfully rooted in ourselves and like a tree. And even my logo is like a branches that look like a brain. And so intentionally, when I think mindfully, I also like think intentionally, and do what I do with intent. And I want people to be intentional with themselves and being rooted on the ground, especially because our day-to-days feel very unsafe and we're at war all the time, kind of, but just like if I can ground myself internally and I want to help, that's what I want to help my clients be able to do.
No, it's great because just sharing a little bit, I found Regina on this website, Inclusive Therapist, very great platform. It's a little bit different from Psychology Today. If you guys ever tried to use that to find a therapist, Inclusive Therapist is really all of those things. We talk about liberation focus, maybe like we're trying to, in some ways, look at systemic approaches to healthcare and say there's a different approach that is more fair and egalitarian and more open. But you touched on this, and in your prior role, you felt a little disconnected from the populations you wanted to work with. And so even picking a practice that was local to Antioch was important to you. Can you maybe touch on that real quick?
Yeah. So there's not a lot of, like most things, Black people are underrepresented in the therapy field. And so I was out here, I was one of, group practice about 10 of us, and I was one of the only Black people there, and the population out here was different than I wanted to serve. I was grateful for my time there. I was able to start out as a self-paid clinician, which is, that's great. So it set me up well, but I also have people traveling in from Laverne and Smyrna and Antioch, and I live in Antioch. And so that's where, and people from downtown Nashville traveling in to see me. And so I was really intentional about like, because it's easy, I can get an office here anywhere. Like it's easy to, establish a new business out here, but I was wanting to be intentional about, I want community. And I think that when we think about all the crazy things going on in the world, I can't do much about it. And I'm very social justice oriented person. And I'm like, what can I do? I can serve the people that I live with, that I go grocery shopping with, that my kids go to school with, and I can be in that area. Not to just mention that it's just nice not to get on the highway. 24, yes. So that I was very, again, mindful and intentional about who I serve and their access to resources driving into Brentwood all the time. It's just not beneficial to them and nor me. And so, being intentional about that. And now I'm like, there's not a lot of us over there. It's not saturated with therapists over there too. So it's beneficial for business for myself too.
What stands out to me, and I think in a lot of these stories, and Taylor, I talked about it, where this ability to be so specific, hyper local, find those people in your area who are talking about jobs, who are talking about positions. The ability to just go sit and break bread with somebody, have coffee with somebody. Render's a great example too, because you are getting plugged with, honestly, a lot of people coming from different places into one location to have a super focused conversation on how do we explode this opportunity for everyone. But I think we bring it back to center again. Taylor, for you, what do you hope that job seekers now, this next wave, what are they thinking about? What are hiring managers thinking about? Can you just give me from that stack of job seeker, hiring manager, and even that executive, how should they be thinking about this next era of employment?
Yeah, I'm really, so again, diversity inclusion, I'm not saying that 'cause I'm up here, I'm saying it because when I was here at Vaco, I grew my team and we had a very diverse team and I'm biased. I think we have one of the better teams, right? And obviously because of that, I really do, because we had a very diverse team. We had a very, very diverse team. And I feel like, and I had an interview with, who did I have an interview with recently on my podcast? It was literally this week or last week. We talked about building inclusion and diversity, inclusion and diversity are two different things. But when it comes to interviewing, it's do you need a bachelor's degree? Mm-hmm. Right. One of my friends, Becca Weigel, she works at Open Source with Brian Douglas, and a great company doing really cool stuff in the open source AI space. And she told me this story years ago. I say this all the time in my talks when it comes to inclusion. She is a mom of 3, and she can't travel. And she saw a job that was perfect for her, and the job said travel up to 4 times a year. Wow. So she didn't submit a resume. So my question to that company is, you missed out on her. Did that person, did they actually need to travel 4 times a year? Right? You're not submitting your resume because it says BA required. Is it BA actually required? Is that some bullshit HR jargon that they have to put in there? Right? And so my thing is I say this, I think hiring could be solved. 50% of hiring issues could be solved if job descriptions were written by a hiring manager and be more intentional. Right. So let's think about individuals who aren't in your shoes, right? Yes. College degrees, money for travel, where are people at, right? In their lives, you got to meet people where they're at. And I feel like job descriptions do not do that. I feel like interviewing, you and I got into that great conversation. I was not saying debate, it wasn't debate. I'd never debate with you. That's you always right. But basically, it was a great conversation about interviewing. And it's I truly believe that companies should have I think every company should have an a la carte option, right? It's first off, you need to lay the groundwork. The entire interview process should not be smoke and mirrors. If you get into an interview process, here's our 5 steps. We're going to try to get this done in 2 weeks. Here's the 5 steps. The actual code process should be a la carte option, because we all do things differently, right? Is it a take-home test? Because some of us may be single and don't have kids. And I'll work better at my own place, in my own office chair, right? Some of us who have kids, especially a 4-year-old who's a 19-year-old female in the house like me, right? Like you, Dad, you're stuck with me for a bit, girlfriend. So I ain't got time to do a code test at home after hours, right? So that will not meet me where I'm at, right? So I'm maybe get disqualified. And the final thing, I think you should maybe just do live pair programming, real time, because I'll probably choose that because I want to just do it in the moment. I have an hour, let's just do it right now. But the problem is that everybody's so set in their ways with interviewing that it's this kind of this. It's one size fits all, and that's just not the case. So my advice for job seekers: be flexible, be coachable, be happy, be joyous. I had somebody comment on LinkedIn the other day that they said they got a job literally because the hiring manager said, you are just a joy to be around. Right? And hiring managers, let's be intentional. Let's meet people where they're at. Let's write job descriptions that actually is inclusive. Let's focus on apprenticeships and internships because the diversity is typically in boot camps and up and coming things and college graduates, right? No company I've talked to has any sort of feeder pipeline. We do it for, again, baseball, not a baseball guy, but keep bringing it on. You know, you have like single A, triple A, double A. That's right. Send that backwards. But anyways, good point. So why are we doing that for companies?
Right.
Right? Why do we have a feeder program where we're educating individuals, right? So again, I don't think it's hard,
Right.
but and you have to be intentional. And unfortunately, everybody is lazy. Not everybody, but a lot of, especially in the executive leadership, just does things to check the box stuff.
Yeah, it's easy. I think at that level, there's just inertia. The system's just kind of working. And
It's easy. Like, we're not operators, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I think about, you mentioned some great names at Render. The guy who made CSS,
He's speaking.
he's speaking.
Shana Sharp's gonna be there. He's not 10, but Hunk's gonna be there, so.
It's pretty cool. So, I say all of that to say, when it comes to intentionality in your career, and that's why I'm so grateful for you to share your story. I think it is, and I want to open up to questions for anyone who has.
Yeah, when, just for timing for people, they have to get out of here. When are we gonna try to wrap up? It's 7:21 right now.
Yeah, so we'll probably be done probably like at 8 and then just kind of have time to hang out about network. And so, but bringing back to intentionality, we started with the grounding exercise, trying to bring everyone into the moment. And we talked about inventory, we talked about finding out who we are. Then it came back around to intentionality. Render is designed with that in mind. And so when you think about people who want to go, who are attending, what is that intentionality they should bring? You said, get the resume right, get the mindset right, but what are some other just tips? How do you make the most of this moment and then also events like Render?
Definitely. I have seen both sides of the coin, where I attended a conference just as an attendee and now to be a part of the conference. And what I would like to speak on is that be open-minded. Come as you are. Do not feel like you have to dress a certain way. Like how we are today, that's the real you show up like that.
I'm gonna wear a suit.
Yes, you are. Stay away from y'all with the suit. But it's okay to come with your J's. It's okay to come with your jersey. That's the type of culture, for real. Like there's themed days. And I think we need to get out of the mindset, like if I change the way that I am, then I'll have a higher probability of getting chosen. That does something to your image. It makes you feel bad in a sense, because you'll drive yourself crazy trying to figure out, can I wear my hair a certain way? Can I wear my nails how they are? I appreciate it. I'm going to show up as I am because that doesn't take away from my abilities. If you're looking for something and it's a problem that I can solve, don't miss out because you're not used to seeing someone with braids or locks. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is be you. We're meant to be unique because you're going to bring a different perspective to that company. We don't need to all think the same. Because then you're just going in circles. Your daily sprints aren't even, it's not about anything anymore. Because you have the same idea as your cohort. You know what I'm saying? So I like to think that with Render, what's so unique about it is that there are so many different walks of life. People who have gotten it out the mud, people who probably created the mud. And we're all under one roof. And the goal is at the end of the day is to win together because I'm looking for something. And to speak to what Taylor had mentioned earlier, you do need a niche down, but that's not a scary thing because then that allows you to shine even brighter. If you have the ability to be super organized, do you know that that is such a profitable skill? Yeah. Companies are looking for someone who can create spreadsheets. You don't even have to have the formulas in it. You just need to know how to add a header. I know, I'm doing it, y'all. And I'm on Google, how do I create a VLOOK formula? I'm learning these things. But it's okay to go in knowing that we don't know everything. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. We probably have all heard that quote. Then you need to be in a different room. That's right. Go to a blender. That is the room.
Yeah, I'm dumb. I'm one of the dumber people.
No, you're not. You're so humble. Yes,
Yeah.
right.
I usually say you're the least informed because you don't know what you didn't learn, so you're not dumb, you just didn't learn it.
That's
So
right.
That's how I agree.
That's
And Anthony Mays, dear friend of mine, he's ex-Googler, talks about the problem that a lot of people, when it comes to interviews, especially trying to tackle FANG interviews, it's just they just don't know. They're just not informed. And so I would highly look up Anthony D. Mays on Twitter. That man is awesome.
No, I mean, I guess open it up for any questions from audience for the panel.
If not, we can still yap for a few more minutes.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So it's regarding, I guess, when it comes to hiring and now with AI and now being a part of the hiring process, because you do see a difference sometimes when you meet someone in person and you speak with them and like, oh, you're a good candidate versus like, I have to battle a computer and I don't know if it's actually going to get to a human. So what are your thoughts about that? Like how AI has changed the game too? Because you might be talented, but maybe what you have on a resume doesn't hit the formula that the AI is looking at, and it doesn't hit a human's computer does.
Any thoughts from?
That's a good question.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is why I always tell people to stay away from submitting your resume. I mean, really AI, ATS, I don't know. I mean, you can set parameters in ATSs where it rejects resumes based off how many keywords in it, which again is dumb. But like, for me, I think that's where you really got to lean in on community. And so what I would do is let's say you saw a job posting at Vaco, right? Vaco's got a software engineer role open. What I would do, instead of submitting your resume to it, I would literally call the front desk and I would say, and I would do this with every single recruiting firm moving forward. So you're welcome for this tip. I would literally call the front desk and be like, who's the recruiter for developers at Vaco for this job posting? It's gonna be that guy right there. And maybe spin it back there, right? So like, but so that's, and then so they'll send your resume to Will, and it happens to us, all the time.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk to those people that call the front desk. We're probably not gonna get to the 300 applicants that we're getting in our job posting. So again, ATS, AI, Smyrna, whatever, doesn't matter. Get away from that, build real relationships.
That's good.
Applicant tracking systems?
Yeah. Yeah, see, I get to use big.
Another question.
Y'all don't be shy.
I have a question. So I'm going to be starting an internship, first professional time working as a software developer. And
Awesome.
I don't know exactly what to look for when you mentioned like we should try to find our strengths and try to capitalize on that. I actually have no idea what that would be. So like, what are some things that I should keep an eye out for? Because as an internship, it's going to be kind of a temporary deal. Like as internships go, I know there's going to be a beginning and there's going to be an end. So I want to try to make the most of my time there to kind of make myself feel presentable for the job seeking process that's surely to follow after that. So
Do you want to take that? Because you started out as like intern and kind of honed in on your strengths.
We'll start off with this. What is your why?
to put food on the table, honestly.
Let's Going in with your why, that's going to give you everything that you need. And I don't want to make this cliche at all. There's going to be a different type of fire that burns in you because you want this bad enough. Please don't overthink this because you were chosen for this. It could have been anybody else, but you were in this position for a reason. Lean into that. Don't second guess, don't doubt. Is it going to take work? Absolutely, but you're going to get through this. You are meant to be here. And then once you're done with this, you're going to be able to tell your story to somebody else who's trying to figure it out. Friend, we're all trying to figure it out. We do not have it together. Can we say it? We don't have it together, but we're just working together. This is why this matters. This is why community matters, because that's an honest question. You know, what do I need to do? Be you. Just show up. Just take notes. Sing songs if you have to. Whatever gets the job done. But at the end of the day, you already have your why. It's implanted. It's embedded. That's more than enough.
took me 13 years to figure out what I was really actually good at. So it takes time, man. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, but be observant of what you like and start to write those things down. I mean, talk about you. I mean, you left, you started,
No,
you started your own thing.
because like in the therapy world, there's multiple different types of populations you can work with, ages. I quickly learned, not children. I don't like it. I had to do it in my internship and stuff, and then I learned like, oh, that's not strength of mine. I don't like it at all. But then I had my first couple, and I was like, I love this. And a lot of therapists do not like couples therapy because it's challenging. Two energies, high conflict, and I'm like, this is my jam. I love this. But it came from years of, having to do something and realize, okay, I'm not good at this. I'm really good at this. And when you're in the middle, I'm sure it's the same way in most fields. When you're doing something, you're like, I can do this. And I like to do this and I want to do it again tomorrow. That starts to feel like a strength, right? But it's like, there's things that we have to do that's not like super enjoyable, like getting through my internship of doing kids. I just don't understand therapy for like 6-year-olds. I don't know what I'm doing. But like there's people that are really great at that, play therapists that go into specialty and they're amazing at it. Not me, but I had to do it because I had to learn, not my strength. And so I think that can apply to like most fields.
It's fascinating. Like,
try it and you learn.
The counterfactual, or like the thing that you wouldn't think to be true is, in some ways you could be disqualifying this path for yourself, saying, I don't like this industry. I like the technology. I like Python or I like SQL, but I don't like this field, like finance just kind of bores me. You may learn that. And that's an insight you can take into your next role, your next position. But I will say, just in general, and Taylor, maybe you can touch on this from Breyuna, and everyone really, just how important it is, particularly in a business context, what is the business trying to solve for? And speak to that. I think we can get very, as developers, hype around like, yeah, I use this framework, but
Resume-driven development.
yeah, never is that like what people are excited about. Because like you said, React was hot 2 years ago. Now everyone has React. And so think about the business problem you solve, be able to speak to that, and that's going to be dividends.
Yeah, this. So basically, like when I interviewed, like I asked, what is your problem? Why are you trying to hire for this role? Right. So it's funny, I was a recruiter and then I found myself on a job search. So I was like, but then of course I did some shit wrong too. My wife's like, you literally talk about this all the time and you're not doing it. But so for me, like, so when I interviewed at Gun.io, I listened, right? I believe it or not, I do listen sometimes. I don't run my mouth all the time. And so I was like, well, what are y'all's problems? They're like, well, I was like, do y'all have social media? They're like, no, we don't have any social media presence. We've tried, we just don't know how to do it. I said, great. I said, do you guys go to conferences? Are you guys involved in meetups? And I knew the answer because I've never seen them in the 12 years I was in Nashville. And they go, no, we've never done that. I said, okay, great. And I was like, so what role are you looking for right now specific? Because I knew I was a little bit different. And they're like, we're looking for a salesperson. I said, great. Well, I probably, did 10 million in revenue the entire time I was at Vaco, right? Or something like that. And they're like, oh. And I spoke exactly what their pain points were because my background. But the problem is we get the interviews and we're just so busy on like trying to survive that we don't know what questions to ask. So next time you get an interview, be like, hey, why are you actually hiring for this role?
Yes.
Because the thing is, they grill you with questions, but you don't ask them questions. So like, hey, why are you guys hiring for this role? Well, Tina was terrible at SQL, and she like didn't know how to spell Python. So like, we really need someone to do that. Like, okay, great. Well, actually, over the last 2 years, I've been heavily in Python and SQL doing A, B, C, D for this organization. Boom, you've literally just answered why they're hiring for this.
Can I say something real quick? This is totally off topic, but also when you're going into these spaces and, they're grilling you, I always like to ask them, what is your financial forecast? Because if you cannot speak to what the success of your company is going to look like in the next 6 months to a year, that's a red flag because you don't even know the direction that your company's going in. So then you're asking me to say yes to you, saying no to something else, and you could be putting yourself in jeopardy. And that's a hot seat. So please be prepared. Either they're going to be able to answer that to the T. And for those who know, they like that because they can speak to the success of their company. If there is something to brag about, that also opens doors because no one's asking that question. You can get a job anywhere. There is not a shortage of money. You are not desperate for a job. We want one. We do need to have one, but you're not desperate. And I feel like the recruiters can sense that in the water. So stand on business. You know what your gifts are, you know what your strengths are, and you know what you can bring to the table. And if they cannot appreciate it, move on, because somebody will.
So I got another question and a comment just to.
Well, keep going.
So I like to think about things from all different perspectives. So I was wondering what you think, because we're talking about hiring, when it comes to retaining, especially like I see a lot of times where a company has a diamond in the rough, or they have someone who's very valuable, but they're keeping them in a box. But everybody, like other competitors and maybe colleagues that are working with them, see it. And, you know, sometimes you're like, it's only a matter of time before this person goes. Like, what are companies doing to keep that person, especially when they have like someone very talented, or they don't realize it until they're gone?
Can I speak to that? I worked for a company, no names. I worked for a company where they were comfortable keeping me in a box. I even said, hey, I went and I earned my project management certification because I'm showing the value. This is what I can do for your company. They're like, that's great. That's cute. Keep doing what you're doing. No pay raise. My employee performance, we would have reviews and, you know, have a little spike, but they were comfortable if I was comfortable. I began to get uncomfortable and I started searching because I knew my value. So now, like one of my companies, they are all about employee incentives, automated employee incentives. So they literally will pay you for your birthday. Like they just want to reward you. They reward you for like your hire date. They care. They're rewarding you for onboardings when that is your job. Because they see the value, because you're pouring back into the company, because the goal is to cover that bottom line and to get those hit those profit margins, especially when you have investors. So we're not worried about the companies who they don't see you. That's not a problem. I'm gonna keep you in my pocket and I'm going to search for that company that does. That company that they don't want to lose you. So they're going to pitch you. They're going to place it on the table. They're going to give you an offer that you really cannot refuse. You don't have to beg them for that. There's no need. There's no need to negotiate this. I have the results. My best friend has literally taught me to log everything that you've done. Keep it on like in a note section of your whatever it is that you've done for the company. So when it's time to have those reviews and you're saying this is why I deserve my X amount, you can show the value that you brought to the company and you have proof. It's one thing to just do the work. We forget about the work that we do, but it's another when you have a paper trail, because you all have a paper trail of things that you've contributed to the success of their business. And if they do not appreciate it, take that data and go somewhere else, because someone else is going to say, that's a goal of mine. We need you here right now. When can you start? We'll set you up with the bonus right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, you guys heard the phrase entrepreneur? Like an entrepreneur inside of a company. And so you're looking at your role and you're saying, how do I grow even my segment of business? So it's like, I may just be a dev, right? I may just be an intern, but what is that project I'm on? What is the problem we're trying to solve? Is there anything I can do that's extraordinary in this regard? That's the type of thing that it sounds, I'm very much of my kind of, the word is woke, but I'm very much just like liberation minded. And so, but I do think there's something to be said for working the job that you want before you have it. And so when it comes time for that promotion, there's no one else comparable, and so that's pretty important. I guess, but any thoughts? Oh, sorry.
I don't have anything to say.
I mean, listen, I think companies need to be aware that just because there's a lot of people in the market right now, that good people will still get snatched up very quickly because cream rises to the top, whatever that saying is. I think that's what it says. And so they'll be out of their best player if they're not aware of what they're doing, or they're not open to changing. And that's a loss on the company. I mean, at the end of the day, I just see it time and time again. There
are some silly kind of rules sometimes, though. I can speak to a few places that we're not going to name names, but sometimes the position can only grow so much, 2%, 4%, 6% within a year. Unfortunately, you're almost better off moving diagonally and then coming back to the company at a higher position. That sounds counterintuitive, but there's something about that. You can price yourself out of a market in that world, but it's like you're playing your own career, not their company. And so, play that game. I think that's reasonable.
That's healthy.
Then I also had just a comment based on what you guys were saying. I know probably some of you, well, I know Kanisha don't mind. She's heard me say this before, but when it comes to like making that leap, or like when you get kind of stuck in like a hard place, there's one thing that kind of stuck with me when I was young, and I'll ask you guys, like, where do you think the most richest place on earth is?
Richest place on earth. I have my own guesses, but
yeah. So there was a quote. So it is the graveyard that is the richest place on earth, because that's where all the unsung songs are, all the unwritten books, all the we're coding, so all the unprogrammed languages, just because someone was afraid to take that leap. So every time I kind of get stuck, I think about that and like, I gotta do it, because you don't want to like look back and say like, I didn't do, like, I was afraid to do something, or yeah, just gotta make that leap. Listen, because a lot of people, we don't want to have those regrets.
Oh, dude, if you saw my videos I put out 4 year ago on LinkedIn, oh, it's awful. First off, I definitely glowed up, thanks to my wife, but the video quality and everything I did, I mean, I had people make comments behind my back and all this stuff, and like, what's this guy doing? Like, what, yada, yada, yada. And like, now it's my entire business. Right. And it's 4 years later. Right. And so like, again, like I tell people like, at the end of the day, like you're your own worst enemy. Like, and if you can just be bad, first videos be bad. I mean, I still deal like, I'm still dealing with like being embarrassed of pulling my camera out in public. And I follow creators that are setting up a tripod in New York City and building content. I'm like, damn, like the balls. To do that. So again, like just be confident and get out of your own damn way.
No, so did you have a question?
I did. Kind of piggybacking off of the question that he asked, and the responses being, if you're in a box, just get up and go. And I think, you live long enough and that kind of becomes addictive, and you wind up on this trail of like just getting frustrated with things and bouncing. And so I kind of am looking for advice when you're in that middle place. Maybe you just started somewhere, or maybe you're just not in a position where you can leave, but you find, a box forming around you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the answer is like kind of like to dip, because you probably, like, not everyone has that luxury, right? That part too, a lot of times you jump to a layoff scenario. And so you really have to be strategic sometimes. Right. So like, do you guys have any advice for, you see a box forming and you see the flaps like coming down, you're like, but maybe there is some like fortitude that can be found there. Maybe there's something like value there, like does not necessarily jump.
I would say right now, if that's happening, be thankful that you have a job right now. I would say that's the first thing. Like the nature of the beast right now, there's a lot of people who don't have jobs. So if you have a job and you feel like the box is starting to come down on you, let's be thankful. Let's show some thankfulness. Mm-hmm. I think the next thing you need to ask yourself, and you need to write this down with pen and paper. I'm telling you something about pen and paper, not Apple Notes, not, pen and paper. Get out from a computer, go on your porch, go on your back porch, wherever, and write down specifically what is going on. Specifically, be specific. A lot of times I counsel this I do a lot of career coaching stuff. A lot of times they do this exercise and they're like, well, it's not as bad as I thought it was, right? Or it's, oh shit, it's way worse than I thought it was. But the fact of the matter is not many people can sit, and we're talking about being deeply rooted, right? Like knowing what's going on, because you got to get yourself out of the emotional trigger, right? And if you get yourself out of the emotional trigger and it just be like, all right, here are the facts. But then I would also, that would be my biggest piece of advice. But then also at the end of the day, like, my final thing, I lost my train of thought. Final thing, is it a company issue or is it an industry issue? Most of the time, it's going to be an industry issue. right? You're always gonna have a mean manager that tells you no. You are always gonna have coworkers that are annoying. You are always not gonna necessarily agree with the direction of the company. That's everybody. Now, if there are very specific things about what's going on, about manager specific, then that's where you start to write that down and you go skip level and say, hey, Mr. Manager, listen, I know I'm doing kind of a jump here, but I need to address it. And you have that written out. The problem is, in my experience, is when people bitch about where they're at, they just bitch and there's no facts with it. Like there's no like, hey, this happened this day, this is a concern. And I've had to work on that, right? Like where I'm at right now, my CEO has challenged me tremendously to be like very laser focused on what the problems are. And so, because I talk a lot. So like being very, very specific. And so that's my advice to you, is just take notes and do a lot of introspection of, is this an industry thing or is this a company thing?
I like that. Thank you.
May I also?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
did you want to go? We're always going to take a risk. So I love everything you said, like, is it having that T-chart? Let me fact check. There's always going to be a risk to a decision. I have 2 little ones. I have a family. So I have to make calculated decisions. If I jump ship, it's not just me being affected. If I decide to leave this job because I want to be a full-time entrepreneur, I gotta know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's okay. It's not to say that, you need to wait for a certain time or so you have a certain amount of money, because that's not everybody's reality.
That's right.
To be able to just save 3 to 6 months worth of savings almost immediately and you can live off of that. That's not everyone's reality. So you have to look at where you're at. You have to be real with yourself. Is this something that you can see yourself doing for the next 3 months? Because your mental is coming into play. I have cried nights. Grateful and thankful I had a job, but that didn't fix the problem that I'm still showing up to a company that doesn't appreciate me. I'm getting underpaid and I'm not reaching my potential at all. So I had to make a decision. I typed up my resignation letter with the date. I did not have a plan. I didn't just leave though, but it made it real for me that I was going to leave by a certain time. But in the meantime, it gave me that to be on high alert that now I'm looking for a position. But the position will come to you because now you're ready to receive. It's still scary because you don't know if that is a good opportunity. You don't know if you're about to put yourself in a way worse position. But the worst thing you could do is to have a regret that you didn't at least jump. You didn't take that leap because that could have been that opportunity that you were praying for that could have just changed the course of everything. So with that being with that saying, just be gentle with yourself, be honest with yourself, but be locked in on what the goal is. Because your life can change like any day for real. So be open to that. Because at the end of the day, you know what you're feeling. And if you feel like I've done everything that I can, just get ready. Because it's gonna hit you like that. Just be ready to receive.
I really appreciate that too, because I think everyone touched on things that I think are so true in this. Journaling is so essential, at least for me, I find it to be, because thoughts can be disorganized. Feelings can feel more important in the moment. But when I allow myself to write, I don't know if you ever look back at like a journal entry you did, you're like, was that me? Did I say that? But there's something about externalizing those thoughts and those feelings. And you can say, I flipped through the pages. I only mentioned that once. It's been a month and I haven't felt that way. And then I look back 2 or 3 months, like I haven't felt that way in a long time. And I was really close to making a decision that is not irreparable. I think we can always come back from things. And so don't also feel like if I step into a bad position, there's not a position after that. That's that catastrophizing too. Allow yourself to say, this was a fleeting moment and that's okay. I felt that way, but it's give yourself that time and that space. And I think there are plenty of frameworks. There's Jeff Bezos calls like the 1 hour decision, the 5 hour decision, the 5-day decision, the 12-year decision. Is the decision you're making, does it play out in that order of magnitude? Like if I'm gonna buy like a nice pair of shoes, next paycheck, that's fine, right? That's not a big decision. Changing jobs, it's a little bit bigger. So give yourself a little bit of that time, So don't feel like you have to move. And I guess the last point too, I think the worst reason to stay in something is to think that you don't have options on the other side. And that can feel crippling and limiting, and it's not true. You think about a relationship that's not working, it's just like, well, all the things that are great about this person and the one thing that's bad, I could probably find someone who's all those great things and none of those bad things, and that person exists. Same thing with their job. So allow yourself to sort of say these things are possible, and then just give yourself that space and that grace.
And I was like normalized, like it's really scary. And so
Yeah.
like what bravery is having the fear and doing it anyway. So like that's what risk, like taking the risk. And so you're never gonna feel like overly confident and like this is gonna work out. Fine. Like but normalizing that things are scary, life is scary and taking risks is scary. And so it's that when bravery comes in, it's like owning that fear and then doing it anyway.
So people should come talk to you.
That's pretty cool.
Scary money don't make money.
Right.
I guess,
I don't know.
yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Where you guys think the opportunities are in the industry right now? If you got, a pretty seasoned person, and they got a multitude of like proven skill sets, what would be a good what's the opportunities look like now in terms of being able to secure something quickly? You know what I mean?
I don't think anything's way, well, I mean, I disagree with that. I mean, one of my buddies who was a Tesla recruiter, he got laid off and then he found a job in 4 weeks. But the thing is like the people who have a community find the jobs best. It's not a coincidence. And so like to answer your question, for me, it's what does your community look like, right? Are you actively? Say what?
My community looks like nothing. I am a antisocial individual. I like Warren though. I see.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, okay.
I feel that. So what I would do if I were you is this is where I would double down and triple down on LinkedIn right now. So I'm an introvert. I put on a personality when I leave the house. And basically, I got actually a counselor for that too. But basically,
I'm reading.
yeah. We'll go now. I'll get blushed. Thank you, bluster here. But all that being said, thank you. Double down on LinkedIn. Like literally delete every app off your phone. That's like that like takes your time up. Like, comment, engage, be thoughtful in comments. Slide in people's DMs. Hey, I love what you said here. Would love to chat with you more about that. That's all I do with my podcast. I had a Becca who I just brought up. She texted me literally 2 days ago. Says, "How do you bring people on your podcast?" I say I watch and I listen. And if somebody says something good, I bring them on. And it's the same thing with networking. If somebody says something good on LinkedIn, slide in DMs, give them props. And people love affirmations. I love affirmations, right? So that's my love language. And so you just if you send me a DM, be like, "Yo, bro, last night killed it." I'd be like, "Great," and you'd be like, "Can I ask you a quick question?" I said, "Sure, absolutely. I'll hop on the phone with you for 4 minutes if you gave me a little, if you gave me some affirmations, right?" So again, that's what I would do. Double down LinkedIn. And just network your ass off, and you can do that as an introvert because I am an introvert at home, and it's absolutely changed. LinkedIn has changed my career. Like actually using LinkedIn, and I have a bunch of videos on my YouTube if you want to check them out.
I guess Regina, maybe a point for you is we use the word introvert, extrovert, maybe ambivert.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? And how do people from those different sort of modalities, how do they approach life?
Yeah. So when I hear antisocial, I as a therapist to me is like, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? Because we're not meant to be antisocial. We are like any other living thing, part of a group, and we need each other. And so most of the time there's a reason why. We are introverted and extroverted. I'm also an introvert. I learned a lot.
I can tell you my reason. I know exactly why.
I think most of us think like, oh, they talk a lot, they're extrovert. That's not the truth most of the time. It's where do you find your rest? There are people, maybe there's some in here, that actually find rest of like outings and partying and social.
My wife. It's my wife.
And that they feel refreshed there. And that's what an extrovert is. An introvert is like, I can be social, I can go do this, but I'm gonna be home for the rest of the day.
My gas tank is empty right now. That's why I asked Warren how much time we got left.
And so I can do it. So that's kind of the difference between introvert and extrovert. I think sometimes we get that confused. We think like because people can be external that they are extroverted, and if people don't like to talk, they're automatically introverted. And it's not true. If you can be the one where we are that said you're antisocial, maybe you just haven't found your people. to be social with, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that because I definitely know some people. If from the outside, they'd be considered introverts, but the reason they're like that is because they think all those people that they're with are fake. But if you actually
Absolutely.
know that person,
Mhm.
they'll talk with you forever, or they might have a small inner circle that they're really open with. So
Mhm.
sometimes, if you're in that inner circle, you're like, that person's not introverted, but it all depends on like the circles or crowd.
Absolutely. If you like meet my husband, he's like, people are like, is he okay? I'm like, he's fine, he's just quiet. He's gonna just talk when he feels like it's purposeful to talk. Then he gets in the right group of people and he can talk all night, you know, but if he was sitting in here, he'd be in the corner and just like watching your phone.
No, I think that it's so critical, right? To when we talk about inventory, we talk about that sort of checking in with self. All those things matter. And the right job, the right opportunity is going to celebrate that and leaning into even some of that. It may sound silly, but even leading with discomfort can be really empathizing for people and open them up and saying in that LinkedIn message, I feel really anxious messaging you. Just that one sentence just lowered the bar for them. And they're like, oh, don't be anxious. Like lean into that insecurity, that discomfort. It really is a source of power. And someone who's willing to sort of say that, lead with that. I mean, I think that sort of explodes the confidence meter on everyone's sort of barometer. But I guess I wanted to also close and wrap up in this regard. I guess any closing thoughts from the panelists?
I've talked a lot, y'all go.
I think I've equally talked a lot. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Not really, just that prioritize your well-being and your mental health. In this, you know, we live in a capitalistic society. There's always going to be something to do. There's always going to be something you get better at or do better at. But if I think we focus more on, we talk about our strengths and what we already are good at, we're going to approach the things that we want to get better at in a more healthy way and not in a desperation way, which is not going to, you know, feel good. So just prioritizing that well-being, getting in close relationship with yourself and take care of yourself.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, listen, it is, as somebody who has been in the recruiting world for 13 years, it is a rat race in this industry. And you can get so focused on the next thing, on the next thing, on the next thing, on the next thing, right? In the recruiting world, you're only as good as your last sale, your last close, as we call it. And I think I have tried in counseling over the last year to really, what I told my counselors, I feel like my foot is glued to the gas pedal and I can't pull it off. And through counseling and through, you know, really good community, I've been able to kind of start to get that foot off the gas a little bit and just enjoy life a little bit more. And so my biggest thing for y'all is like, listen, like if you're struggling and you just feel like you're stagnant in your career, or you're not making enough money, or you don't have the title you want, or you're not doing what you exactly need to be doing. I think I already said that. All that being said, like breathe and enjoy and try to enjoy, because that's what I'm trying to work on right now. And like one of the ways I'm doing it is I'm very blessed. We sold our house at the height of the boom, and we have a lot of acres up in Hendersonville, and I go for walks every night now. And I go for walks and I like look at the property and I'm just thankful where I'm at right now. So I encourage you all, go for walks, get outside, be thankful, because there's a lot to be thankful for even in this market.
And I would also like to say, find your champions. You know, even if it's one person. Like, there's a special someone in this room who every day, she's just every day. You know, I could say, Ash, today's a hard day. I could cry with her. I could be vulnerable. I'm not worried about like, does she look at me any differently? Am I failing? Because she reminds me that you're that girl or you're that guy. So find your person. And again, like I think Taylor mentioned it earlier, please don't leave without getting LinkedIn's. Even if you don't feel comfortable getting everyone's, like just find somebody that you're like, hey, like, oh, you're in development, cool, like let's connect. Because somebody in here is going to share a similar interest. And then the last point, it's okay to step out into entrepreneurship. People get scared because the thought of stepping out, you know, doing your own thing. But really all you're saying is, I'm no longer relying on just one way of doing things, which is just submitting an application and waiting to hear back, yes or no. because it's still the same skills that you have. So you can start off by identifying what you do, what are those applications that you would apply for anyways, make that a service, okay? Because the thing is, we're not gonna know what every company needs. Every business is going to be different. So you don't have to worry about trying to check off all those boxes. They'll tell you what they need. And I can almost guarantee you that you're able to do the job. So just get out of your way, find your person, and live life, because life is worth living.
No, I think,
Breyuna, is that your
Yes.
name?
Yes, you can call me Bree like the cheese.
Bree, my name is John. I'm an entry level React developer that worked really hard to get that at UCF, full stack. But I wanted to say that I really enjoyed your advice and your humbleness. What you've said really touched me, and it's going to go a long way. So I just wanted to bring that to the table. I also just wanted to say to ask all of y'all did wonderful today. I enjoyed this. I just wanted to ask, since I'm entry level, this is my second career, and I'm getting into the second career, and the imposter syndrome really sets in sometimes. Can you just answer each one of you? What would you tell? Because y'all had to start at the beginning yourself. What would you say to your younger entry level self today?
Can you keep talking? You have the best voice. Keep fucking talking, man.
John, you call it.
Yeah. You wanna go first?
Yeah, imposter syndrome is, sometimes I don't even think it's imposter syndrome. Like, we're not supposed to be doing a lot of things that we are doing. The systems don't want us to do it. We weren't, there's things trying to hold us back from doing it. We're not supposed to be where we are. And so sometimes it's imposter syndrome when we can do these things, but sometimes it's us responding to
The impossible.
yeah, the impossible, exactly. And so sometimes it feels like I just need to believe in myself more, but I don't want to, that's hard when things are set up against you. So, but I would, again, what we talked about a few times, go back to your strengths. Like I would go back to be like, no, I'm really good at this. No, I know what I'm talking about. Like if I was to tell my younger self, and what I hear with you is that like, there's something that had you switch careers, and that took risk, I'm sure, and braveness to do. So again, what I would speak to my younger self is I would be a lot more kinder to myself. My younger self, I would speak to my strengths. I would speak affirmations over myself a lot more, and push myself with love versus like shame, guilt, and judgment. That's what I would.
So after going through imposter syndrome, probably the most I've ever had my entire career, I was year 11, 12, and 13. So literally I just got out of it, and looking back on it, it was the biggest breakthrough of my entire career. So typically if you aren't dealing with imposter syndrome, you are on the breakthrough of something great.
That's good. Uh-oh. How do I go after?
Nice, like it, love it, love it.
I would say, I think that is also an indication that you are challenging yourself.
Yeah.
And you are becoming uncomfortable and you're growing.
Sure.
So, because I deal with that all the time. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what they're talking about. But just be gentle, be kind, and know that you are so capable, John, and everyone else. Take your time with it. We all started from somewhere, but the thing is, it's not supposed to just be your old comfortable shoe, because then that means that's it. What's more to learn? I've got it locked down. I'm making what I want to make, but there's so much more. So when you have the feeling and the bouts of doubt, just know that it's lies of the enemy, and to lean into the God-given skills that you have. For me, my comfort zone is going into prayer. That's where I find my rest, because it's too much to try to handle the baggage by yourself. To feel like I have to know it all, I have to do it all. There's more to us than that. Maybe it's finding your people that you can talk to and they can remind you, you are wonderfully and fearfully loved and made. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. This is just a new shift in your season, but you're going to get through this just like the other seasons that have come before.
You know, I mean, I can speak to, echo everything everyone on the panel said. You know, this is a sign of growth for you in your life. The fact that you feel challenged is a good sign. But really, recognize any place that would make you feel other for being new is probably a place you don't want to be in the first place. Because any person who's empathetic would recognize they had to start at some point and would not make you feel bad for that. But another thing too, recognize even the senior React developer, and I say this more like particular because of the coding relationship in this way. No React application is the same. Any developer walking into a new code base is going to have to learn things as well. And so you are a beginner. You can ask good questions. You can challenge. There's so much value you bring as a beginner, a new mind that is insanely valuable to a team. That is so much more than I've only had X amount of experience with this technology. And the fact that you said you have this is a second career for you. There are people who are stepping in, all they have is React. You have a whole career on top of that. And so to that point, you're very gifted and have a lot of opportunity to contribute a great amount to the team, not just React.
25 years in business.
Oh, man, I mean, you're probably more experienced than some of the managers out there. So.
And the voice
Well,
actor.
not in tech, though. Not in tech. I'm new to tech, so the imposter syndrome.
Tech is
Yeah.
Tech is just tech. It's business. It's business. It's business. It's business. Everything.
Well,
Digital business.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Good advice. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I do want to close, but sort of finishing thoughts. We talk about wellness. We talk about a job. We talk about life. All these things are not destinations. They're journeys. And so there's no achieving wellness. It's something that you maybe have for a moment, and recognizing that, being okay with that, and saying this is something that I work on is part of that lightness, part of that joy, part of that thing that can give us a little bit more motivation day to day. I'm not achieving life. I'm not ending life. I'm in it. And that's really hard to, I think, maybe internalize, but it's something that I pray on and think about often.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to leave everyone with that today.
Love it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna make sure you have. Thank you, man. Look at the long songs.
No, I want to see what they picture first. Right. You want to do? Oh, you gotta take the camera.
Dang, that's a good camera.
Yeah. You guys want to get, you just want to.
That's all I can.
Yeah, is that?
We'll be in the front.
There's some beats out there. Let's go here. Here, I'll get on one side, we'll get on the other side. Yeah, you should. But there's blood.
Appreciate you, man.
It was great. I mean, I didn't.